This is the Lakin Chronicles Road to Recovery podcast with addiction specialist Dr. Greg Lakin. Real people, real stories, real addiction, and real recovery journeys. The road to recovery starts now.
All right, Doc, it's all yours.
Thank you, Phil. Hey, today we have Stephen. Stephen is a gentleman that has a story to tell that I think is very inspiring and not atypical. And so, but again, it just goes to show that with persistence, you can make a difference in your own life, and you really, it's your journey, and he's one that I think has a great story to tell. But Stephen, and thanks for coming today. I appreciate it because nothing is more empowering than a good success story. And if people out there that have addiction issues, if they really want help, they don't want to hear some doctor talk about the neurobiology of addiction. I mean, I could drone on forever, but you're a good success story, and as far as you've come is inspiring to me. But yeah, tell us when the addiction and the behavior started.
Okay. Let's see. Sometimes it's hard to remember that far back because
Right.
my life has changed so much. But I think it was probably a good maybe almost 20 years ago, I'd say, that I was introduced and became addicted, and I probably suffered through it for a good 5-6 years before I decided to really make a change and get clean. Do you want to know like how it started? And
Yeah, so you're in Connecticut now, right, or the East Coast?
Right.
Yeah.
I lived in Connecticut. So it actually started with I had a sinus infection. And I didn't realize I had a sinus infection. Well, the doctor didn't realize that I had a sinus infection. So I went to the doctor, and he prescribed something for pain, which was Vicodin.
Right.
I had never taken it before, and I started taking it when I had the pain, and obviously made the pain better. But one thing I noticed was when I was at work, there were some people I didn't particularly care for.
Right.
And I noticed when I was taking the medication, I didn't mind them so much.
Right. Right.
And so I kind of put two and two together that it was that was doing it. And I figured, well, if it works this good when I'm in pain, I wonder what would happen if I took it and I wasn't in pain.
Right.
So that's what happened. And I took it, and there was and once you start doing stuff like that, you start learning things about other people. You mention a few key words, and it opens them up to what their illicit hobbies are. So there was a guy that I worked with who actually started selling them to me, and that was fine at first because it was just like maybe a Friday, Saturday thing. And I didn't miss it so much. But as time went on, I started spending more and more money on it, and that's when I started, really getting hooked on it and getting really bad into it. So I found ways to, I had a doctor at the time. He wrote them out quite a bit. In fact,
Right.
he was known he had a reputation for doing that.
Right.
Whether it was that he just didn't care, or
Back in the day, physicians didn't understand the danger, so
right,
much more freewheeling.
Right. And to his credit, I was lying.
Right.
I was lying. But then I also started going to the emergency room, and I would complain of all kinds of pains that I didn't have. When that stopped working so good, I actually started making pain for myself. I think I still have some of the scars to this day. I'd hold my arms up to the stove. I'd get it good and red and hot, and I would actually burn my hands.
Right.
And if people would ask me how I was able to do that, it's because I think I was able to shut it off because the pain that I was feeling from the burns was so much less, and I was so less afraid of that pain than I was of the pain of withdrawal.
Right.
So it was easy for me to do that, and if you show up at the hospital with a burn, obviously you're hurt. So that's when it started getting really bad, and
And then at this time, was it hydrocodone, oxycodone? I mean, what Percocet, Lortab?
It was Vicodin, Percocet. We don't really have Lortab on the East Coast.
Oh, is that right?
I've never even heard.
No,
of
I heard that. I heard the Percocets were much more common than the Lortab.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And OxyContin was it was pretty popular at the time because
Sure.
it was still kind of new.
Yeah.
So there was quite a bit of that going around.
And that would be the OxyContins or the long-acting
Yeah,
oxycodone.
the 80 milligrams,
Absolutely, yeah.
Whatever. I
Yeah.
didn't care. I didn't discriminate. Whatever I can get my hands on.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Whatever I could talk a doctor into giving to me. Then one day, when it started getting really bad, was when I was introduced to heroin. And I wasn't even sure it was heroin.
Right.
I think they had a name, P-dope or something for it, and someone had told me, yeah, it comes in these little bags, it's this brown powder, and it works just as good, it's the same thing, so I figured, what the hell, I'll try it because it's cheaper, and it worked good.
Yeah.
And it worked good.
Yeah.
It worked good. And, that's when I started. I never injected it, but I sniffed it. And, now, at this point, my whole life is basically tied into this drug. Anything that brings me joy, anything that I have to do. And I always went to work, too. Even withdrawn.
Right.
I had a pretty good work ethic even back then. But things that I enjoy doing were always tied to that. That was the number one priority. If I didn't have that, then it just wasn't going to work. It wasn't going to be any fun. I wouldn't even be able to function. That was at that point that I just it was the first thing I thought about when I went to bed, and the last thing I thought about before I or rather when I got up and when I went to bed. It's always the first thing you think about.
And then money-wise, or like you said, you had to work.
Yeah, no, I had to work,
yeah.
but of course I was behind on bills. I could barely make rent. We were struggling. And I think it was around the time that my son was born that I decided that I wanted to make a change. And I had purchased methadone and Suboxone when I was in the throes of addiction. And so I knew it would work. So I went to a methadone clinic in Connecticut called Connecticut Counseling Centers. And the doctor there, can I say his name? Can I say the doctor's name? His name was Dr. Mark Krause. And he's just a fantastic guy. He reminds me a lot of you. He's a real personable, fantastic guy. And I remember him telling me, I remember I was embarrassed when I told him that I was burning my hands on the stove and stuff. And, I expected him to give me a cross-eyed look, but he didn't. He just said, well, I'm glad you're here because you need to be here. And that made me feel good. So I got on the methadone, and after adjusting to the right dosage, because methadone is kind of too much will make you nod off, and too little.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I was on that for about a year, and then I decided to make the switch to Suboxone because I had also picked him to be my regular doctor outside of the methadone clinic because it just made sense to me.
Could you feel your brain starting to change once you got on the methadone, or something that was long acting and you're not doing this all day? Did you feel like the cravings, the withdrawals, the urgency, the fear? Did it start to become more manageable at that time, or not till later?
It did become manageable. One thing that I've learned that I had to relearn was that the medication, the Suboxone, the methadone, because to my brain they're both the same. It's just to me I liked Suboxone better because it had less of the side effects and the BS that goes along with it. But it only fixes the addiction. It doesn't fix the rest of the mess, which was my life. And I think that was my wrongful thinking at first, that once I got clean, everything was going to just become wonderful, and it did not. It did not. I had made such a mess of my life that once I was able to take care of that, I needed to start to fix things and learn how to enjoy things again without
actually deal with life.
Deal with life. Yeah. And in fact, maybe that's the only thing I could think of is why a lot of people go back to it is because they do this and they go through this, and now this, you almost feel like there's this big giant hole in your life, and now it's gone, and you got to find something to fill it with, and maybe some people just can't learn how to do that again,
Right.
to find the good things that they had in their life before they were a slave to this drug.
Well, and you have such a quick fix there. If you just take another dose, you got such a quick fix of dealing with all your other life issues, at least for that moment in time. But so now you're coherent, you're in the present, and now so it's not an easy journey necessarily, but obviously you've made it.
No, getting clean was actually the easy part. Just staying clean was the hard part.
Yeah.
And I'm actually really proud of myself to say that once I got cleaned, I had the mindset that I'm not going to go back. And it's been a good between 13 and 14 years now. I've lost count. And so no, it's not an easy journey, but little by little, fixing things and learning to become human again. I consider myself to have a decent life now. A good life, yeah.
And once you've been clean for a certain period of time, now you're back in control. You got confidence. You know that life is good on this side. And so you don't feel like, maybe you're cautious, but you don't feel like you're going to relapse. You don't feel like you've got willpower. You've got...
Yeah, no, I don't feel like I'm going to relapse. Not at this point. Not at this point in the game. Every day that goes by, you think about it a little bit less, because even to this day, if I think back on some of the experiences and the drugs and the way they made me feel, I get that butterfly feeling in my stomach, and then at this point I could laugh it off and move on. But I think at this point I'm probably still in recovery, and probably always will be, and I'm okay with that. And I'm okay with that. I accept that. Because I think it would just be one slip up away from going back.
Right.
And I always keep that in the back of my head. And I'm not going to let that happen.
Absolutely. 15 years is amazing. Now you're professional, you've been at a high-tech job for a long time, family.
Bought a house.
Yep, there you go. Bought a house, kids. Yep. That boy you were worried about, how old is he now?
14.
Yeah.
Yeah, 14.
Yep. So you got teenagers, God help you.
Yeah.
All right. Well, good. Good. Any other little tidbits of information you'd like to, as somebody that's been there and done that and succeeded in accomplishing, any other little tricks of the trade? You said it's a journey. It doesn't necessarily mean that just because you're off drugs, it doesn't mean your life's going to be instantly better. No. As a matter of fact, the way I looked at it and the way I would tell other people to look at it that want to get clean or trying to get clean is it's kind of like a pyramid of misery. And at the very tip of that pyramid is probably your drug addiction, which trickles down to all the other problems you have. So if you cut that top off the pyramid, you might be able to start working. That's definitely a monkey you don't want on your back. You can't fix everything else if you've got this hanging over your head. No high-functioning heroin addicts that I know of. Yeah. No, absolutely. Well, good. No, I appreciate you coming and telling your story so much. Like I said, stories like this are powerful. They're not even atypical, but just for people to see what it's like on the other side, and it's actually worth it. It is. And it doesn't mean your life is suddenly boring or anything. You've got a wonderful family, a wonderful life. Sure. Buy your house, dealing with a teenager. All right. Well, thank you, Stephen. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Dr. Lakin is a board-certified family medicine doctor with an emphasis in addiction medicine and over 25 years of experience. For addiction recovery services in the Wichita area, please visit www.centerforchangeks.com or visit samhsa.gov for a national directory of resources and recovery centers in your area. You can also find these links in the podcast description. Thank you for listening to the Lakin Chronicles Road to Recovery podcast. And remember, you've got this.